I walked into the house with my bag over my shoulder, the same house I'd grown up in. It was Christmas Eve, and my parents had insisted I come home. I hadn't been back since the funeral 3 months ago. My chest felt tight the moment I stepped inside. The air was different, colder, like the house itself was holding its breath. My grandfather's riding chair still sat by the window, his plaid blanket folded exactly as he left it, his glasses on the side table, his slippers near the fireplace. Nobody had touched anything. My mother said it didn't feel right yet. My father just avoided the room entirely. Before we go further, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the like and drop a comment telling us what scares you most. Footsteps in the dark, things moving on their own, or voices you can't explain. Dinner was quiet. We talked about college, about the weather, about anything except the empty chair at the head of the table. After we cleaned up, I went upstairs to my old room. The bed felt smaller than I remembered. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind scrape against the window. Snow had been falling all day, thick and silent, covering everything outside in a blanket of white. The house settled into its usual nighttime creaks. I closed my eyes. I woke to music, faint, distant, but unmistakable. My heart kicked hard against my ribs before I even opened my eyes. It was that old Christmas song, the one my grandfather used to hum while cooking breakfast, the one he'd play on the radio every year without fail. I held my breath and listened. It was coming from downstairs, from the living room. I sat up slowly, my throat dry, hands gripping the edge of the blanket. The house was dark except for the faint glow of snow through the windows. I checked my phone. 3:25 in the morning. My parents' door was closed, no light underneath. I stood and walked to the hallway, each step careful, listening. The music continued, soft and crackling, like it was coming through an old speaker. I descended the stairs, one hand on the railing, the other clenched at my side. The living room came into view, and there it was, my grandfather's radio, the small wooden one he kept on the bookshelf. It was on. The dial glowed faintly orange. The volume was low, but the song played clear enough. I crossed the room and turned it off. The silence that followed felt heavier than the music. I stood there for a moment, staring at the radio. Nobody had turned it on. Nobody had been down here. I glanced toward the Christmas tree in the corner. The lights unplugged, the ornaments still. Everything looked normal, but my skin prickled. The kind of feeling you get when you know someone's watching. I turned toward the kitchen. The doorway was dark. I couldn't see inside, but I felt it. That pull, that certainty that something was wrong. I didn't move. I just stood there, breathing slowly, my heartbeat loud in my ears. After a long moment, I forced myself to look away. I went back upstairs. I didn't look behind me. I lay in bed, eyes open, listening to the house. The wind, the settling beams, the faint ticking of the old clock downstairs. I must have drifted off eventually, because I woke again, suddenly. My chest tight, my breath caught. The music was back, but this time it wasn't a song. It was static, a low, constant hiss. I sat up fast, my hands shaking. The sound was louder now, filling the house. I threw off the blanket and went downstairs again, faster this time, my bare feet cold against the wood floor. The radio was on, the dial still glowing, but the static grew louder as I approached, like it was responding to me. The volume knob turned on its own, slowly, notch by notch. I lunged forward and hit the power button hard. The static cut out. Silence again. My hands were trembling. I stepped back, breathing hard, and that's when I noticed. The door to the kitchen, the one that led to the backyard. It was open, not wide, just a crack, enough to let in a thin stream of freezing air. I walked over slowly, my pulse hammering, and pushed the door open. Snow had blown onto the tile just inside, and beyond the door, in the fresh snow covering the back steps, there were footprints. They came from the dark edge of the yard, up to the door, and then turned around and went back. But they stopped at the tree line, just stopped, like whoever made them simply vanished. The prints were fresh, the edges sharp. I stood there staring, the cold biting into my skin, my breath fogging in front of me. I pulled the door shut and locked it. My hands fumbled with the deadbolt. When I turned around, I saw them. My grandfather's shoes, the brown leather ones he wore every day. They were sitting by the door, right where he always left them. Nobody had moved them since he passed. I knew that for certain. I stepped closer. My throat felt like it was closing. I reached down and touched one of the shoes. It was warm. My hand jerked back. My heart slammed in my chest. I stumbled backward and hit the counter. That's when I heard it. The sound of the doorknob turning. Slow, deliberate, metal scraping against metal. I spun around. Through the frosted glass of the door, I saw a shape, a shadow, human, standing just on the other side, close enough that I could see the outline of shoulders. A head. It wasn't moving, just standing there. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. My legs felt locked. The doorknob stopped turning. The shadow remained. I forced myself to step toward the side window, the one that looked out onto the porch. My hands pressed against the glass, my breath fogging it up. I wiped it clear and looked. There was no one there. The porch was empty, the snow undisturbed except for those same footprints leading away. I checked the door again. Locked. I checked the window latches. Locked. I stood in the kitchen, shaking, my mind racing, trying to make sense of it. But there was no sense. I turned and walked back through the house, checking every door, every window. Everything was secure. My parents' room was still dark, still silent. The house felt like it was holding something in. As I passed through the living room, I stopped. There was something under the Christmas tree that hadn't been there before. A small wrapped box. The paper was old, yellowed at the edges, tied with a simple string. I crouched down slowly and picked it up. There was a tag, written in shaky handwriting, the kind my grandfather had in his last years. It said his name, just his name, nothing else. I set it down carefully and backed away. My skin felt ice cold. Someone had been in the house. Someone had put that there. I turned and ran upstairs, my heart pounding, and I shook my father awake. I told him everything, the music, the door, the footprints, the present. He sat up slowly, rubbing his face, his expression unreadable. He told me I was just stressed, that I probably hadn't noticed the present before, that the door must have been left unlocked. But he didn't get out of bed. He didn't go downstairs to check. He just told me to go back to sleep. His voice was firm, but his eyes avoided mine. He didn't want to know. I went back to my room and closed the door. The air inside was freezing. I looked at the window. It was open, wide open. Snow had blown in onto the sill. I stared at it, my mind blank, my body numb. I had closed that window before I went downstairs. I knew I had. I walked over and shut it, locked it, checked the latch twice. I looked outside. No footprints below, no ladder, no way anyone could have reached it from outside, which meant it had been opened from the inside. I locked my bedroom door and sat on the bed, my back against the wall, my phone in my hand. I tried to call a friend. The call dropped. I tried to load a page. Nothing. The signal was there, full bars, but nothing worked. My phone buzzed once. No notification, just a vibration. I set it down. That's when I heard the footsteps, above me, in the attic, slow and steady, like someone walking without trying to hide. One step, then another, then another. My entire body went rigid. I stared at the ceiling, tracking the sound as it moved across the floor directly above my bed. The steps were like someone pacing. Then, beneath the footsteps, I heard something else, faint, almost buried under the sound of the wind. Music, that same Christmas song. But it wasn't coming from downstairs anymore. It was coming from above, from the attic. The melody was soft, distant, but clear. The footsteps continued. Sometimes they paused. The music never stopped. I sat there, frozen, my hands pressed over my ears, but it didn't help. The sound was inside my head now. The footsteps moved again, crossing the attic slowly, and then they stopped directly above me, right over the bed. The music got a little louder, a little clearer. I could hear every note. My whole body was shaking. I couldn't move, couldn't think. I just sat there, waiting for it to stop, but it didn't. The music played on, soft and relentless, until the first light of dawn crept through the window. Only then did it stop. The morning came slowly. I didn't sleep. I sat there until I heard movement downstairs. When I finally opened my door, my parents were already in the kitchen. My mother looked tired. My father looked tense. They asked me if I'd been in my grandfather's things during the night. I said no. They looked at each other, something passing between them that I couldn't read. On the kitchen table, sitting in its usual spot, was my grandfather's pipe, the one he smoked every evening before bed. Nobody had touched it in months, but there it was, and a thin trail of smoke was still rising from the bowl, freshly used, still warm. I looked at my parents. Neither of them said anything. My father picked up the pipe carefully and set it aside. My mother turned away. I glanced back toward the living room. The radio was off, but when I walked over and touched it, the metal casing was warm, like it had just been turned off moments before. If this story gave you chills, don't forget to subscribe for more unsettling tales. And hit that like button if your heart raced even once. If it didn't scare you, leave a comment and tell us what would. We read every single one, and we genuinely want to know what haunts you.
I woke up at 2 a.m. on Christmas to those sounds. Again, every Christmas I could hear it. The knocking, slow, like someone trying to be polite about asking to be let in. But there was no one at the door. The sound was coming from inside the walls. I grew up in a small town in rural Pennsylvania, the kind of place where people still burn coal in winter, and the nearest grocery store is 20 minutes away. Our house was built before the war. Thick walls, dirt basement, no central heating, just radiators that clanked and hissed all night long. My parents bought it cheap because no one else wanted it. I didn't understand why until I was older. Christmas Eve was always the same. My mom's side of the family would come over. Aunts, uncles, cousins. The house would be full. Football on the TV. Bing Crosby playing from the kitchen radio. The smell of roasting turkey and stuffing filling every room. Kids running up and down the stairs. Laughter. Noise. Normal life. That's when it would start. At first, it sounded like the pipes. Old houses make noise. Everyone knows that. Metal expands and contracts with the cold. Water moves through ancient plumbing. The floor settles. My dad always said it was nothing. Just the house doing what old houses do. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. But as the night went on and people started leaving, the house would get quieter. That's when the sounds changed. They weren't random anymore. They had a rhythm, a pattern. Slow knocking, then scraping, then a dull thud, like something heavy shifting behind the plaster. It always started around 10, always from the same wall in the living room, the one near the basement door. My little sister used to cry. She said it sounded like someone trying to get out. My mom would turn the music up louder and tell us to stop scaring each other. My dad would check the basement, the attic, the crawl space. He never found anything. But the noises didn't stop. They got stronger. By 11, you could hear it even over the TV. A steady rhythm. Knock, scrape, thud, knock, scrape, thud, like something working at the wall. My uncle joked once that maybe Santa was stuck in the chimney. No one laughed. The sound felt too deliberate, too intentional. It always got worse as midnight approached. Louder, faster, more urgent. Like whatever was making the noise knew the time mattered. My throat would go dry. My heart would pound in my ears. I'd sit on the couch with my hands balled into fists, trying not to look at the wall, trying not to imagine what might be on the other side. And then, right at midnight, it would stop. Just like that. Silence, the kind of silence that feels heavier than sound. My dad would check his watch and nod like it proved something. He'd say it was the furnace cycling off, or the house adjusting to the temperature drop. Something rational, something safe. We'd all go to bed. I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, listening to my own breathing, waiting for it to start again. It never did. Not until the next Christmas Eve. The next morning, when the sun came up and the house started to warm, you could see marks on the wall, long lines in the plaster. always in the same places, always shaped the same way. My mom would spackle over them every year, paint them white again. By the next winter, they were back. I left that house when I was 18, joined the military, moved across the country. I told myself I'd never go back. But a few years ago, my dad passed away. My mom sold the house and moved into a smaller place closer to town. I had to go back one last time to help clear things out. That's when I started digging. I'm not sure why. Maybe I just needed to know. I went to the local library, looked through old property records, newspaper archives, county land maps. Most of it was boring. Deed transfers, tax assessments. Nothing unusual. But then I found something. Before our house was built, the land had been used for something else. In the early 1900s, there were storage cellars dug into the ground. Underground rooms meant to protect food from the winter cold. They were common back then, especially in coal towns like ours. I kept reading. Found a mention in a local paper from December 1911. A short piece buried on page 4. Something unusual had happened that Christmas Eve. The article was vague. It didn't explain much. It mentioned reports from nearby homes. Sounds heard late at night. Confusion about where they came from. Some people said the noises came from the old storage site. Others believed they came from the woods behind their gardens. Sound travels strangely in winter, especially through frozen ground and empty spaces. No one ever knew for sure if anyone had been inside. No one could say what caused the sounds. Some thought it was animals. Some blamed shifting earth. Others whispered about spirits. What mattered was that no one checked. The whole town was scared of what they might find. The sound stopped shortly after midnight. According to the paper, a team arrived the next morning. They searched the area. Everything seemed intact. No collapsed entrance. No sign that anything had happened at all. After that, the site was filled in, forgotten. Years later, our house was built on top of it. I went back to the house one more time before they tore it down. Stood in the living room, where the noises always came from. The wall was still there, spackled over, painted white. I pressed my hand against it and felt the cold seeping through. Not from outside, from below. It wasn't a mystery anymore. Not really. Old spaces underground, shifting temperatures, pressure changes. Sound finding its way through places it shouldn't. The same conditions. Every Christmas Eve, every year. The house wasn't haunted. It was just built on top of a place where something happened. Something the town remembered just enough to fear, and just enough to never talk about out loud. It wasn't a mystery anymore, not completely. There were explanations that made sense on paper. The house wasn't haunted. It was just built on top of something the town chose to forget. But I still don't understand why they always stopped at exactly 12.
Our security camera recorded the same shadow every Christmas Eve at exactly 3 a.m. It never moved, it never changed. This year, I noticed something I never had before. I woke up at 2:47 a.m. on Christmas Eve. My chest was tight, my hands already cold before I even touched the phone. I don't know why I opened the camera app. Habit, maybe. Or something worse. For 20 years, the same thing happened. Every Christmas Eve, exactly 3 a.m., the outdoor camera would catch a shadow near the garage door. Same spot, same shape, never moving. Just standing there for maybe 10-15 seconds, then gone. Before this gets even darker, subscribe to the channel. Hit the like and leave a comment below saying which scares you more. Shadows that watch, unexplained sounds, or things that move on their own. We joked about it. My wife called it our Christmas ghost. My family would make up stories. But it was always just footage, something we'd re-watch the next morning, shrug at, and forget until next year. A strange tradition in a house full of normal ones. I kept the app open, watched the timestamp crawl toward 3:00. My throat felt dry. I could hear my own breathing in the dark bedroom. My wife was asleep beside me, her breathing steady and calm. The house was silent except for the faint hum of the heater pushing warm air through the vents. 2:58, 2:59. Wow, nothing. The outdoor camera showed the driveway, empty, the garage door, clear. The spot where the shadow always appeared was just concrete and darkness. No shape, no movement. I stared at the screen. My heartbeat was loud in my ears now. 20 years, never missed, not once. Not during storms, not during power outages, not even the year we were away visiting family and checked remotely. Then the motion alert vibrated in my hand. Living room camera. I tapped it. The angle showed the Christmas tree in the corner, the couch, the TV on the opposite wall. And on the wall beside the tree, a shadow. Long, thin, projected like someone was standing just out of frame, cast by a light source that shouldn't exist. But no one was there. I sat up slowly. My hands were shaking. The timestamp said 3:01 a.m. I kept staring at the phone. The shadow didn't move. It just stretched across the wall, perfectly still, like it had always been inside, like it belonged there. I told myself it was the tree, the lights, some angle I'd never noticed before. 20 years of Christmas trees in that corner, and maybe this year the branches were different. Maybe the ornaments hung differently. But we've had cameras inside for 6 years. I've checked that room 1,000 times on the app. Late nights when I couldn't sleep, mornings before work, random moments throughout the day. I'd never seen that shadow. I got out of bed. My legs felt weak, unsteady. The hallway was dark. I didn't turn on any lights. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want to see. Maybe some part of me knew that light would make it worse. The living room was ahead. The glow from the Christmas tree lights spilled into the hall, soft red and green pulses that seemed slower than they should be. I stopped at the doorway. My chest hurt. I was holding my breath without meaning to. The room was empty. The tree stood in the corner, ornaments swaying slightly. I could see my reflection in the black screen of the TV, just me, standing there, alone. My shape outlined by the colored lights behind me. I stepped inside. That's when I heard it. Footsteps, soft, slow, coming from the other side of the room, near the dining area. The sound of weight shifting on old floorboards, deliberate, measured. I froze, my whole body locked. The sound stopped. I took another step. The footsteps started again. Same rhythm, same weight. Always just behind something, just out of sight. Moving when I moved. I turned toward the tree. The ornaments were still moving, gently, like someone had brushed past them seconds ago. A glass ball near the middle was rotating slowly, catching the lights, but no one was there. I looked at the TV screen again. In the black reflection, I saw myself. And behind me, just for a second, a shape passed through the frame. Tall, thin, moving left to right across the reflection. I spun around. Nothing. The room was empty. The couch, the coffee table, the bookshelf. Everything exactly where it should be. But the air felt different, heavier, like the temperature had dropped 5 degrees in the last minute. My hands were trembling now. My mouth was dry. I could feel my pulse in my throat, rapid and irregular. The footsteps had stopped, but I could still hear something. A faint creak, the floorboards settling, or something shifting its weight, waiting. The Christmas tree lights flickered. Once, twice. Then the living room camera lost signal. I checked my phone. The app showed a gray screen where the feed used to be. Connection lost. But my hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I tried to refresh. Nothing. The timestamp froze at 3:04 a.m. I backed toward the hallway. My breathing was shallow, fast. I didn't take my eyes off the room. Something in the corner of my vision moved. Just a flutter, like fabric settling. But when I looked directly at it, there was nothing. I reached the hallway and heard something else. A sound from upstairs. My second bedroom. A soft thud, like something had been placed on the floor. My stomach dropped. Ice ran through my veins. The guests were asleep. They had to be asleep. We checked on her at midnight like we always did on Christmas Eve. I moved toward the stairs. Each step felt wrong. Too loud, too slow. I could hear my own breathing, ragged and uneven. The stairs creaked under my weight. Halfway up, I stopped. Footsteps again, below me now. In the living room I'd just left. Slow, deliberate, moving across the floor. I looked back down the stairs. From this angle, I could see part of the living room. The tree lights were still on, still pulsing their slow rhythm. And then I saw it. A shadow on the wall. Not the same one. This one was moving. Slowly. Walking along the wall like it was cast by someone crossing the room. But there was no one there to cast it. I ran up the rest of the stairs. My legs felt like they would give out. I reached the second bedroom door and pushed it open. Our guests were asleep. Safe. Exactly as they should be. But her window was open. We never opened her window in winter. Never. The cold air was pouring in, billowing the curtains. I crossed the room and shut it, locked it. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely work the latch. When I turned around, I saw what had made the sound. One of her stuffed animals was in the center of the floor. A bear I got years ago when I was little. It had been on a shelf for years. I'd seen it there when we checked on her at midnight. Now it was on the floor, sitting upright, facing the door. I picked it up. It was cold, not room temperature cold. Actually cold, like it had been outside. I placed it back on the shelf and looked at my guests, my family, still asleep. Their breathing is steady. I closed the door softly. When I reached the bedroom, I locked the door. My wife stirred but didn't wake. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the phone. All the other cameras were fine. Kitchen, hallway, front door, garage, but not the living room. I could still hear it. Faint sounds from downstairs. A creak, a soft thud. The kind of noise a house makes when someone's moving through it, exploring it, learning it. I didn't go back down. I sat there, watching the bedroom door, until the sun came up. Every small sound made my heart race. Every creak made me hold my breath. I checked the guest room's camera feed every few minutes. They never moved. The window stayed closed. But I didn't sleep. When my wife woke, I told her the camera went offline. She didn't think much of it. Technical problems. Happens all the time. We went downstairs together. The living room looked normal. The tree, the presents, everything in place. Except one present was missing. A small box we'd wrapped 2 days ago. Red paper, gold ribbon. It had been under the tree, near the back. I remembered placing it there myself. My wife asked if I'd moved it. I hadn't. We searched the house, under furniture, in closets, the garage. Nothing. The present was gone. Later that afternoon, I opened the front door to take out the trash. The present was sitting there, right in front of the door, perfectly centered, the ribbon still tied. Not a wrinkle in the paper. The door had been locked all night. I checked it 3 times before going to bed. I checked the front camera footage immediately, scrolled through the entire night. No one approached the house. No one opened the door. No delivery. No movement. The present simply appeared between 6:47 a.m. and 6:48 a.m. One frame, it wasn't there. The next frame, it was. I brought it inside. My hands were shaking again. The box felt normal. Light. I shook it gently. Something rattled inside. Something small. My wife asked what was wrong. I didn't answer. I couldn't explain it. How do you explain that something moved a present from inside your locked house to outside your locked door without opening any doors or appearing on any cameras? I placed the present back under the tree. The gifts should be opened only the next day. Christmas Day. Like normal. But I kept staring at it. The red paper seemed brighter somehow. The ribbon perfectly tied. Too perfect. That night, I went through the old footage. 20 years of Christmas Eve recordings. I watched the shadow appear at 3 ISO AM, year after year. Same spot, same time, same shape. And then I realized something. I'd always checked when it showed up. I never checked when it left. I scrolled through every recording, frame by frame, year by year. The shadow appears, stays for a few seconds, 10 seconds, 15, 20. Then the footage cuts, or the angle shifts, or the recording ends. But I never saw it walk away. Not once. In 20 years of footage, there's no record of it leaving. It just stops being there, like it was never there at all, or like it went somewhere else, somewhere the camera couldn't see. I checked this year's outdoor footage again, the moment it should have appeared. 3:02 a.m. exactly. Nothing. But if I went back 15 seconds to 2:59:45 a.m., there was something. A flicker at the edge of the frame. So brief I'd missed it the first time. A shape. Moving toward the house, toward the door. I checked the front door camera. Same timestamp. Nothing. I checked the living room camera. It cut out at 3:04 a.m. But if I watched from the beginning, from 3:01 a.m., when the alert triggered, I could see the shadow on the wall. And if I watched carefully, very carefully, I could see it moving. Not walking, not pacing, getting closer, closer to where the camera was mounted. The footage ended when the shadow reached the camera. For 20 years it only watched. This year, it touched something. And now I know it understands the house. It knows the rooms, the doors, the windows. It knows where we sleep. And tomorrow morning, we're going to open that present, the one it moved, the one it brought back. I'm sitting here now, 2:34 a.m. on Christmas morning. The house is quiet, my family is asleep, and I'm watching the cameras, all of them, waiting to see if it comes back. Don't forget to subscribe for more unsettling stories that'll keep you up at night. Hit the like if your heart was racing. If not, leave a comment and tell us how we can make these even more intense. We really want to hear from you.